Similar results have been obtained with more complex behaviors. For example, Hollis, 1984, demonstrated that classical conditioning improves territorial aggression in male blue gourami fish. In this experiment, see Figure 4.8, one group of fish learned that a red light predicted the entry of a rival male. In contrast to fish that did not learn this association, the conditioned animals exhibited more bites and tail beating, almost always winning the fight and retaining their territory. When the same stimulus predicts the arrival of a female, male gourami fish exhibit courtship behavior. They also spend more time nest building, spawn more quickly, and produce more young than males, who are exposed to a female with no prior signal. All of these examples provide ultimate explanations for classical conditioning by illustrating how this cognitive process increases survival and reproduction. Figure 4.8, classical conditioning in blue gourami fish. One group of male fish, classical conditioning, was presented with a light prior to the entry of a rival male into their territory. An unpaired control group experienced the same number of light presentations and rival entries, but these were not paired. On a subsequent test, the classical conditioning group showed more aggressive displays than did the control group. Okay, so in this diagram graph, you can see that on the x-axis are blocks of 4 days from 1 to 6, and on the y-axis is aggressive displays from 0 to 15, and one set of connected dots is showing classical conditioning group, and the other set of connected dots is showing the unpaired control. So when there's an unpaired control over the blocks of days, the aggressive displays stay the same. It's a horizontal line, whereas for the blocks of 4 days with the classical conditioning group who have learned that a rival fish is going to come in, their aggressive displays increase over time. Operant conditioning. Operant conditioning provides a different kind of fitness advantage, one that allows organisms to adjust their behavior based on its consequences. In many cases, operant conditioning serves to shape or modify pre-existing tendencies. The fixed action patterns described in Chapter 1, Section 1.4, are behaviors that are triggered by stimuli in the environment, e.g., a red dot on a parent's beak elicits pecking in European herring gull chicks. But these responses change with experience as chicks become more efficient at pecking. The idea that cognitive processes supporting operant conditioning are inherited is supported by studies with human infants. Babies as young as 2 months of age learn to kick vigorously to activate a mobile lying above their head. As with birds, parent-child interactions are also facilitated by operant conditioning. Babies provide social feedback, such as smiling and cooing, increasing the nurturing and attention that parents direct toward them. The advantages of this exchange are mutual. Children experience better care, and parents benefit from the increased health and potential fitness of their offspring. Researcher profile, Professor Karen Hollis. Karen Hollis's scientific studies are a model of comparative cognition research. Her initial training in psychology, BA, at Slippery Rock State College, Pennsylvania, was combined with a biological perspective during her PhD at the University of Minnesota. These two influences helped to shape her scientific perspective, which incorporates experimental manipulations into the systematic study of naturalistic behaviors. The focus of Hollis's work is understanding how animals learn to predict biologically relevant events, such as food, mates, or predators, in order to interact effectively with their environment. In Hollis's words, "The point of my research is to see how what psychologists say about learning can be brought to bear on what zoologists study in the field." This groundbreaking work is a regular feature on science shows in the media, including television, radio, and webcasts. Importantly, Hollis's initial studies identifying how classical conditioning may increase the survival and reproduction of fish has been extended to a variety of species. In that respect, Hollis's research program epitomizes the comparative approach. She and her colleagues have published experimental papers using ants, fish, dogs, or people as subjects. Karen Hollis is currently a professor in the interdisciplinary program in neuroscience and behavior at Mount Holyoke College, South Hadley. She also spends time as a visiting scientist in European labs, including Oxford, Cambridge, and the University of Paris, and is a regular speaker at conferences and symposia throughout North America. Adaptive specializations. The adaptive significance of associative processes became apparent in experimental lab work in the second half of the 20th century, in the second half of the 1900s. Prior to that time, many psychologists adhered to the principle of equipotentiality, the idea that associations between different stimuli, responses, and reinforcers could be formed with equal ease. For example, Pavlov proposed that any stimulus could be used as a conditioned stimulus in his experiments, and Skinner claimed that animals could learn any operant response as long as it was physically possible for any reinforcer. According to these scientists, the results of their experiments could be generalized to all instances of associative learning, and many believed to all cases of learning. This is clearly not true. Some associations are easy to learn and others are not. A conditioned taste aversion often develops following a single conditioned stimulus, unconditioned stimulus pairing, and may last for months or even years. In contrast, some stimuli never elicit a response, even if they are paired with an unconditioned stimulus on hundreds or thousands of occasions. The relative ease with which animals acquire certain associations is referred to as adaptive specializations, reflecting the idea that learning an association between two stimuli has conferred some evolutionary advantage on the species. One of the most elegant examples of adaptive specialization comes from an experiment by Garcia and colleague, 1966, illustrated in Figure 4.10. In the first part of the experiment, rats were presented with a drinking tube containing flavored water. Every time the rats licked the tube, a brief audiovisual stimulus was presented that consisted of a clicking sound and a flash of light. Animals were then either shocked or made ill by X-ray treatment. Thus, all rats experienced the same conditioned stimulus, flavor plus light sound combination, with half receiving a shock, unconditioned stimulus, and half receiving the X-ray treatment that made them ill. In the subsequent test, animals were presented with two licking tubes, one that contained flavored water and one that contained plain water linked to the light sound cue.